Hello everybody, I'm Hazel. Welcome back to my channel all about ice cream. And today we are sticking with the hot drink theme, but moving on from tea. We are going to be making coffee ice cream. I've just realised as I look at my section of ingredients, I don't actually have the coffee out. So let me go and find that. That would be in here. And you can still only see the saucepan, but I've moved into my spare room. Right, there we go. Coffee. So I said when I was making the tea ice cream that coffee won the battle for hot drinks in an ice cream. I think tea ice cream has its merits. I really like tea ice cream. I'm not really much of a coffee drinker, but I quite enjoy it in an ice cream. And so this was a nice one to do. We're still in the cold weather. Hot drinks are certainly appreciated in this kind of weather. Plus, finally, I am making for you just my standard custard base. So let's get started on that. We start off, I'm going to make 800 grams of this. So we start off with 60% of single cream. So that will be 480. I've got 500 here, so it's quite straightforward. I just get to use the majority of the pots. And of course, starters are meant to go on. I haven't managed to get the little spoons out. There we go. So coffee also has a long history. I'll be honest and say I had to research quite a lot of this because I'm not as up on coffee as I am tea. Coffee originates, we think, well, we're pretty damn sure, from Ethiopia. And then fairly early on made its way over to Yemen, to the extent that the Yemen port of Mocha has managed to associate its name with coffee. They were a primary importer of coffee from Ethiopia, and they were growing their own also pretty early on. In fact, there's more records of cultivation techniques in Yemen than there are from Ethiopia itself. So mocha as a chocolatey coffee is a relatively modern use of the word. It comes from the coffee that was grown and exported via the port of Mocha, having a chocolatey taste flavour to it. And then it was adulterated and people were adding chocolate to it, and now we associate it with coffee that has chocolate added to it. But mocha coffee does not necessarily mean coffee with chocolate in it. Coffee was brought over to kind of Central and Eastern Europe via the Turks, but made its way into more sort of Western Europe via the ports of Italy and Venice particularly. And coffee was associated with sedition, so coffee houses were set up fairly early on. We're getting coffee houses in the 1600s, certainly, in the UK. Well, I need more or less all of this anyway. This is quite an easy pour. And because they're somewhere that people were, learned men specifically, were sober, they were associated with anti-establishment thoughts. Various monarchs tried to ban them. I think Charles II was banning coffee houses. And a lot of those coffee houses went on to become establishments that you'd know now. So the likes of Lloyd's the insurers was Lloyd's the coffee house originally. By the way, women, we wouldn't have been in it. Not everywhere banned women from coffee houses, but certainly England did. Germany, I think, didn't. But they weren't thought to be appropriate places for women. Women generally took more to, well, women entertained at home, and that's where you then get into things like high tea and afternoon tea, and that's a whole different topic of conversation there. So that's 480 grams of single cream, and then not much whipping cream, only 5% whipping cream. So I'm making, 800, I only need 40 grams of whipping cream. So pour that in. I'm going fairly steadily because once I put this in, I can't take it out. 42, I can live with 42. And then I didn't get a nice, excellent split. The majority of them did fine, but one of them split. You can just see it in the back there. This is 15% egg yolks, which turns out to be 1 per 100 grams. So I have 8 egg yolks here. So most of them will plop in, and just with a tiny little scrape. Trying to get all my yolk. There we go. And what are we up to? We've done the cream, done the creams, done the egg yolk. That leaves us with 20% of sugar. You notice that these are adding up to 100. That's because coffee is a flavouring in this ice cream. It is not a prime ingredient. I'll just knock that. That's going to be annoying. Just zero it down. We're wavering. It will settle itself in a minute. You can make coffee ice cream a bit like I was making the tea ice cream. You can make up a coffee and just pour it into the ice cream. However, that is not considered the best way of doing it. In fact, that was quite a disdained way of doing it. Let me find the official comments on that. It'll be saved here somewhere. Coffee ice cream. Some make it with ground coffee, well strained, but the cream has then a disagreeable brown colour. Personally, I wouldn't mind a brown colour. What was I putting in sugar? It's 20% sugar, so I need 160 grams of sugar. Personally, I wouldn't mind a brown colour in my coffee ice cream. I've said before, homemade ice cream is like 50 shades of beige. A little bit of brown would at least liven it up a bit. But it was not the correct way to do it. So don't do it. You can do it. It makes a stronger coffee flavour. It's how I make coffee ice cream for my mother. It's one of the ways I make coffee ice cream for my mother. Sometimes I just do this recipe but modify a couple of things. We are nearly 140, 150, 160. There we go. Go over to one side. And then we have the coffee. So this is one that I have purchased because I wanted Yemen mocha coffee. For world issues reasons, it's not that easy to get things directly from Yemen at the minute. A little bit of a war going on, has been for a while. But I found a coffee shop nowhere near me. Where are they? They're up in the Lake District, I think. Yeah, they're quite far away from me. I do like the Lake District. I go to the Lake District a fair bit. Which is what I used to go to the Lake District and do was a lot of walking, which I don't get the chance to do very much these days. But this is proper Yemen mocha coffee, which is the coffee that was specified in the original 19th century recipes. I mean, so I can do flavour notes in tea and chocolate. Other people can do it in coffee. I can't. That just smells like coffee to me. I've got a friend who became more interested in coffee as she got older. I really wanted to be a coffee fan because I think I would have got a lot out of, drip rates and different grind settings. I just don't like the flavour in a drink very much. It leaves me with quite a lot of aftertaste. That doesn't smell. Apparently, Yemen coffee became associated with chocolate because apparently it has a chocolate undertone. Can't smell it in that. Anyway, so the original recipe is about 12.5%, which is easy. Half again. So half gets me to 400, half again 200, half again 100. So I need 100 grams of coffee beans. But this is one of the other ways I modify it for my mother. Because it is just a flavouring, you don't need to change the recipe if you want to use more. So if you want to use 20% coffee beans, use 20% coffee beans. And it will make you a stronger coffee flavour. I find this is strong enough for me. Oh, I forgot to get a whisk out as well. One of these days I will eventually remember to get everything out. No, I won't. I've been watching these long enough. I think I've only ever done it once. And then, a bit like always, take off the cap protection lock. Actually take those off of there because I have my rack in the back for a particular reason. Just start whisking this until it nearly forms a custard. And the reason you're only whisking it till it nearly forms a custard this time is it's going to be left to stew for, the original recipe says half an hour. Again, you are not making this to serve it in a 19th century confectioner's / ice cream shop. If you want to leave it to stew for longer and get a stronger flavour out of it, you can do that. That's one of the other ways that I modify it when I make it for my mother, if I don't want to get the disagreeable brown colour. But because it's going to be left to stew in a hot pan, it will continue to cook a little bit. So you don't actually want it to have quite formed a custard yet. So start checking it fairly early on. See, that's not quite leaving a line. It's not far. Probably only going to mix that for a few more moments. You also leave it to stew with a lid on. The recipe was very specific about it being a covered pan. Let's test that again. Again, we're almost leaving a line. Just a very, very slight whisk. It's not heating up very well. I don't often do them in these big pans. It's the one I had the lid for. I have in the past done it in almost like a wok. That was before I had my nice pans with the pourable spouts. I reckon that's probably going to be it. Not quite. I can push that slightly further before I've really got the custard. Yep, I think we're going to leave it there. I say that and then give it one brief extra whisk. Nope, we've got froth, we're good. Right, lid on. I've got little straining holes there, but I don't actually want that to work. So lid on, put that there, and that will just get left for half an hour. In fact, let me set a half-hour timer. You don't have to be that precise if you don't want to be. 30 minutes, but I would like to be. So that will just strain a little bit. Why did I turn the light off? So that will just strain. And why is my camera flashing 0M at me? I'm unsure. I think my memory card may have run out of space. I deleted everything from it. That will just stew for half an hour, and then when I come back, all I'm going to be doing is straining it. You strain it at this stage, not a later stage. And from there, leaving it to chill before I churn. And my watch has just buzzed to tell me that half an hour's gone by. I used that half an hour to go and get some milk. I forgot to get milk in my shopping this week. And I don't mind the cold weather. Let me just take the lid off of my nicely stewed coffee custard. If I just move the pot out of the way a minute, you can see that's what it will just look like. Give that a brief re-whisk, because some of it will have settled on the bottom. Don't be surprised if a little bit of this cooks from the residual heat. Don't panic if a bit of it cooks from the residual heat either. You're just about to strain it. It's not going to end up in your ice cream. But yeah, so I don't actually mind the cold weather. I do mind the hot weather. But I've got Raynaud's syndrome, and I had a really bad bout of pneumonia last year. There's my sieve on, there's my sieve. So all you do, just pour it through a sieve into whichever container you're using. And then if any of it did cook, you'll get it out. See, I thought a bit of it might have done. What was she using? That might be sugar. That might be a little bit of sugar that didn't dissolve. Actually, I don't think any of the egg did cook. But yeah, so whilst I don't mind the cold weather, my hands mind the cold weather, and my lungs mind the cold weather. So what I should do, and I don't do it very often because it just looks really stupid, what I should do is wear like something over my mouth, like a scarf or a snood, and gloves. But on a 7-degree day, when I don't even want to walk around with a coat, it looks really stupid to have gloves and a scarf on, but no coat. And I thought, I'm only going for a brief walk. Yeah, my chest now hurts and my hands are all funny colours. Maybe I should just wear the scarf and the snood. I just get as much of the custard out of that as possible. And a bit like the coffee, not this is the coffee, a bit like the tea, this can be dried off, cleaned off and dried off, and can be used again. I wouldn't put it back in the bag of the rest of the coffee beans. Just taste a little bit of that. So that's a good coffee taste for me. Hint of coffee, but clearly highlighting the other ingredients too. So yeah, don't put it back in the same bag, but you can store it and it can be used again. Where am I going to put this? I solved my freezer space problems, now I've got a fridge space problem. There we are, managed to find some space. The reason, incidentally, that I really wanted to have milk was I want to make some milkshakes with this. So whilst I don't like coffee as a drink, I do really like it as a milkshake flavour. And that's why I wanted the milk. I will suffer for my coffee milkshakes. The flavour of this one won't develop all that much. It will develop a little bit, but it's no longer got the flavouring ingredient. You know, the coffee beans are here. So you don't have to leave it to develop in flavour for too long. Once that's chilled, that can be churned, which means I may end up churning that later today, or I might do it tomorrow. I'll see how I feel a bit later on. I'm just preparing to re-whisk the ice cream before I'm going to churn it. I am doing this on the same day because it occurred to me that I'm having work done in my house tomorrow, and it should be done. But I know my luck on these things. I know that they always go over. And if that's the case, the noise you hear is just me manually re-whisking the ice cream in the background. If that's the case, I won't have much access to the kitchen. I also won't have much access to the dining room, but filming the tasting of it can wait a couple of days. That's not the end of the world. It's not great if the ice cream mixture hangs around for that long. The work I'm having done is I'm having a smart meter put in. And the reason I have my suspicions that it won't go as nice and easily as they say it will do is my house is just full of weird little quirks. And if that was the case, it was just, I'm having it done because I want it to be done, and they turned up and said, oh yeah, because of XYZ reason, it's not going to work very easily, I'd just go, all right, okay. But it's being installed because my regular meter went wrong, so it needs to be done. But that means that the things that you might just try and say, well, okay, if it's going to make what should be a 2-hour job into a 2-day job, just leave it. It will have to be done and be made into a 2-day job. There we are. I don't particularly want a smart meter, but you don't really get much of a choice when they're replacing it. This has been pre-chilling for 6 minutes. Slowly pour. I remember when smart meters were first coming out, and it was, can they barge into your home and force you to have a smart meter? No, they can't. What they can do is stop making non-smart meters. So when you need to have the meter replaced, it will have to be replaced with a smart meter. Just going to drink the tiny bit that's left in here. My mother says this isn't coffee tasted enough. I find that really, really strong coffee. I don't know if that's because I'm sensitive to coffee or she's really insensitive to coffee. Either way, I'm making this one for me. If I was making it for her, I'd have put more coffee flavour in it. The fuss about the smart meters reminded me of when we were having the Brexit referendum and people that were wanting to vote leave, which ironically is the one that ended up leaving and then ended up winning. They were very much, oh, make sure you take your own pen to the polling station in case they rub out your cross. And it's just, do you want to take your own laminator as well in case they're going to rip up your ballot paper? People get themselves in a twist about the funniest of things. I'm probably going to leave that for about 20-25 minutes, come back to it and hopefully have some nicely churned coffee ice cream. I'm recording this not at the same time that I'm actually taking the ice cream out of the machine, so nothing that I'm saying is going to correspond to what is you can see happening. I don't know why, it just didn't record. All I was really doing there was taking ice cream out of a machine and talking about my spreadsheet failure, in which I've realised that I have for the last however many ice creams. Because what I do on my spreadsheet is I don't make a new page every single time. I copy like a master page and just change some of the numbers around so that when I want to run simulations of what I think an ice cream is going to be like, it doesn't take me as long. But on one of them, on one of the ones that I copy, obviously I have made an error because one of the sort of the values that I work out via the spreadsheet, particularly the TSNF or total solid non-fat, which is essentially how much percentage of the ice cream is taken up by the sugar, and the MSNF, the milk solid non-fat. I've been including the fat for about the last 30 to 40 ice creams that I've made. Now, it's not the biggest problem because I've never tried to do anything to modify it. That just is a number that comes out, whatever it comes out. I feel much the same way about the MSNF. So my ice creams are actually quite low on MSNF. They will be. MSNF is essentially protein, the protein found in the dairy products. And I don't have an awful lot of that because I do have a lot of fat in them. Because it's milk solid non-fat. I have a lot of fat, therefore I have less milk solid non-fat. And some people get themselves worked up about it. I generally don't. You can do things like add skim milk powder to increase it, but then you've got to formulate the recipe in other ways. It isn't something that featured heavily in any of the ice cream recipes that I've used. So my old 18th and 19th century recipes aren't too bothered about what their MSNF was. Neither am I. But I just calculate it because I like to know it. And TSNF I put into the same category. So I like to know it, but I've never tried to do anything to modify it. So it's not like I've been changing recipes based on this value. But it means that anytime I've shown you a screenshot of these spreadsheets, that number's been wrong. Anytime that I've looked at it, that number's been wrong. And I now have to go back and correct for it, which is not going to be the biggest problem. I just have to change a couple of numbers around. But it's going to be time consuming and annoying. And part of me thinks, should I just delete that line from my table? But no, that would not be the correct thing to do. I need to make it correct. So that will be, presume that I'm not going to be able to get into the kitchen tomorrow or the next day to do any tasting of ice cream. That will be my project for tomorrow. And then once I have my kitchen and dining room back again, which could happen tomorrow, I could be wrong on my house, the work in my house taking longer than it should do. Hopefully I am wrong on that because it will be inconvenient to not have my kitchen. But if I am wrong on that, if I'm not wrong on that, I will get back and taste the coffee ice cream when I can do. I don't think I've talked as long on this as I did for the actual filming, so enjoy some silence whilst you watch me pot up some ice cream. And now it's time to try the coffee ice cream. I messed up the days, by the way. I thought when I was making this on the Tuesday that my work was being done on the Wednesday. It's not, it's being done on the Thursday. So I thought I may as well do the tasting today, because who knows if I'll have access or if I'll even be in the mood to do anything, even if I have access to the room. And here it is, none of the disagreeable brown colour, but I think would have at least brought some colour to the ice cream. Nice soft texture. And to me anyway, a nice strong coffee taste. I like tasting the ice. I always like tasting the ice cream anyway. But I particularly like it when I know that I already like it. And this is just a nice, easy one. Even as I'm not a fan of drinking coffee, I have to put the lid back on, otherwise I'll eat more of it. Even as not a fan of drinking coffee, coffee ice cream is it's just nice. It's a nice flavour. It goes well with lots of things. So I'm going to take a fair bit of this and turn it into a milkshake in a moment. I used up my cream from, well, I had some left over from last week, which you didn't see, which was me testing out some new recipes, and some left over from this week of making the ice cream, because this doesn't use much of the whipping cream. So I've whipped that up into a whipped cream that can go on top of the milkshake. It'll be a nice evening treat. I've still got some of the chocolates left over as well, so I could do the same sort of thing with those. This is just a nice recipe. I finally got a chance to show you my standard custard recipe. I have reformulated some of them to use the half milk, half cream version, but I need to test out and actually see, does that, once you put the ingredients into it, taste as nice as my known custard recipe. So for now, this is still my standard custard recipe. It's just a nice, easy week. I knew this one was going to work. This one goes straight into the tutorials. It doesn't need to go near experimental playlists at all. Next week, we're back to experiments. So next week is going to be hazelnut ice cream. I've actually got 2 different recipes from it. So I have 3 books that I mainly work from. One of them used recipe A and 2 of them used variants of recipe B. I have a suspicion. I think recipe A might work better, but I'm going to make both of them and see what I think of it. And then that might be the nut ice creams cracked. That wasn't meant to be a pun. My friends say I make a lot of puns. I often don't even realise that I'm doing it. So that will be next week of hazelnuts. And so I shall see you back here for hazelnut ice cream. 2 versions of.